Let me end with this story. It happened about 150 years ago in the Old South. They called him the richest man in the county, and well, he was. He owned the most land, he had the most horses, the most cattle, and he also owned the most slaves. As he was riding his beautiful white stallion through the countryside one day, he saw his oldest slave, who was very dear to him, Mo, and he rode over, and Mo was crumpled under a tree as if he was in pain. And he reared in his stallion and he said, "Mo, are you okay? Are you okay?" And the old slave looked up and he said, "Yes, sir, I am fine, master. I have just been praying." And the richest man in the county said, well, Mo, what were you praying for?" And Mo looked up through eyes of wisdom and he said, "Sir, I have been praying for you." And the man, taken a little bit aback, said, "Mo, why are you praying for me? Everything's good." And he said, "Sir, I had a disturbing dream, and the dream told me that the richest man in the county was going to die tonight." And the richest man in the county looked at Mo and said, "Well, Mo, don't worry about me. I feel good. I appreciate your prayer." And as he rode off, it started to weigh upon him, because Mo was kind of revered as a great spiritual man. And so he rode into town, and under false pretenses he went to see his doctor, who happened to be his best friend. And he asked for a cursory examination. And the doctor proclaimed him to be in the greatest of health. But still a little trepidatious, a little perturbed, he asked the doctor, "Hey, how about coming over tonight and let's have a meal and talk and catch up?" And the doctor readily agreed. And so that evening they had a great meal and they talked and just reminisced. And the night became later and later, and the doctor said, "I need to go home." And the richest man in the valley said, "No, why don't you stay here?" And they talked all night. Until at daybreak, the rays of the sun raced across the tops of the trees, burst in through his big bay window, and fell upon his head, and he had made it through the night. It was as if a burden had been lifted. He told his friend what had happened and about the dream of Mo. And they both felt a lot lighter. And about that time, there was a knock at the door. And the richest man in the valley, who happened to be very close to the door, he opened the door, and it was one of the young slaves. And you could tell he was all upset. And he said, "Sir, something terrible had happened last night, and we wanted to tell you. We wanted you to know." And the richest man in the valley said, "Well, what is it?" And the young slave told him, said, "Sir, Mo died last night in his sleep." And the man thought to himself, now I understand what Mo's prophecy was about. He turned to his friend and he said, "We're going to have the greatest funeral for Mo this county has ever seen." And then he turned back to the young slave and he turned to his friend and he told both of them, he said, "From now on, would you tell everybody, would you please get the word out, never again to refer to me as the richest man in the county." Because you see, the richest man in the county, well, he died last night. Jesus said, "For what shall a man be profited if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" And so I end with this question to you. What shall you give if you gain the whole world, if you become as rich or as wealthy or as powerful as your imagination can dream? What good will it do you if you lose your soul?